Hi everyone, my name's Matt, and a few months ago I upgraded my storage server to be more powerful, more compact, and better fit my current and future needs. I transitioned from TrueNAS Core to Scale, but didn't end up setting up much beyond a basic SMB share because a major TrueNAS Scale update was coming in the near future. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a few hardware upgrades I've made between then and now and show you all the services and applications I've set up over the last couple of days. Now, to give you guys some context, I mainly built this storage server to hold all the videos and project files from the channel, but recently I've been getting more into servers and home labbing, so I made this upgrade to give me more power to play around with. I'm currently running TrueNAS Scale, and I'll quickly go over the hardware in my system. For the CPU, I'm using an Intel Core i5-12400, which is 6 cores and 12 threads, along with integrated graphics that can be useful for some server applications, this being cooled by an Intel stock cooler. The motherboard I'm using is the Gigabyte B660M Aorus Elite AX. This board is a bit overkill for this build, but out of what I had on hand at the time, this best fit my needs with 2 M.2 slots and decent PCIe expansion. For RAM, I installed a 2x16GB kit of DDR4 memory at 3200MHz CL16. In terms of storage, I'm using two 120GB ADATA SATA SSDs as redundant boot drives, a single 500GB NVMe SSD, which I'll talk about more later, and 6 14TB WD white label drives that were shucked from external drives, and while not exactly the same, are most similar to WD Red Plus drives. These are in a RAID Z2 configuration, give me around 56TB of usable space, and allows for up to 2 drive failures without any loss of data. All these SATA drives are connected through the motherboard SATA ports, along with a SATA expansion card that I had to get after killing an M.2 SATA card. Also, to address something from that last video, this shot was filmed well after the card was dead and was meant to be visual hyperbole to show this M.2 SATA card is pretty fragile. I was way more careful with it when I was initially installing it / when I was troubleshooting it. For networking, I'm using this Connect X3 10GB network card from eBay that uses an SFP Plus connector. Powering this system is an overkill 650W EVGA SFX unit that I used because it's what I had on hand at the time. All of this is housed in this Johnsbow N4 case, which holds all my parts by being pretty small, subjectively nice looking, and relatively affordable at about $120. When I first saw this case online, I fell in love with it, but the more I've used it, the less I've liked it and will probably be moving away from it sooner rather than later. So now that you're back up to speed on the starting point, let's now talk about a couple hardware upgrades I made before talking about the software. The first is I added another 500GB NVMe SSD, which I'll use with the original 500GB one to act as a mirrored pair for applications and virtual machines. I also had another 2x16GB kit of DDR4 memory on hand and decided to throw that in to give me a total of 64GB of RAM. The next upgrade is one to address what many people see as a major flaw with this case. For drive cooling, there's only a single 120mm fan for all 6 hard drives. With this single fan, the drives were sitting in the upper 40s, which isn't the end of the world, but definitely not ideal. A commenter in the last video suggested a DIY fan mod that someone made and published the files for online. This is a 3D printable mount that can hold 2 slim 120mm intake fans at the front of the N4. So I downloaded and printed this out along with purchasing 2 120mm slim Thermalright fans. These install into the 3D printed shell along with some magnets to hold it to the case and magnets to hold the front panel to the fan mount. The fitment and tolerances aren't perfect, but this was way better than what I could have come up with, and this mod dropped the drive temps into the mid 30s. This definitely hurts the looks of this case, but if you already own one and want better drive temps, this is definitely an option. I believe the creator even sells ones he printed if you don't own a 3D printer yourself, which I'll link down below. Also, you might have noticed my hardware is pretty dusty. That's because unfortunately all my networking resides in my laundry room that also has a kitty litter in it that produces a good amount of dust. Even though I use quote-unquote dust-free litter, I'm thinking of relocating my networking to a different part of the house, and I'm not sure if I'll make a video on it, but if you'd like to watch a networking noob struggle to run cables and terminate Ethernet jacks, let me know in the comments below. So now that you have the full picture of the hardware and the upgrades I made, let's get into talking about the software. So this is my TrueNAS Scale install right after those upgrades, and as you can see, there's not much on it. I've basically just been using it as a network drive, but that ends today. The first thing I had to do was update from version 24.04, which is called Dragonfish, to 24.10, which is called Electric Eel. The big change is moving from Kubernetes to Docker as the method for deploying and managing applications, and me waiting to install a lot of these applications was a good idea, as trying to migrate these applications from 24.04 to 24.10 can be a pain from my understanding. If you want more in-depth information on this release of TrueNAS Scale and its features, I'll leave a link in the description to a Raid Owl video where he does a very good job of explaining all the changes and the implications of those changes. So with that updated, I could start messing around with applications and VMs. Originally, I was going to try and kind of live show the process of me figuring this all out, but the prospect of editing down 10 plus hours of setup, research, and troubleshooting didn't seem like it would be a reasonable thing to do. So what I'm going to do is now explain what I installed, what it all does, and talk about my experience setting it all up. Alright, so let's sign into TrueNAS. Now, quickly, the dashboard on Electric Eel, you can customize it to how you want. Not something I've really messed around with, but it's a nice feature add. We can start by going over into the app section, and as you can see, I have installed a good number of apps onto TrueNAS Scale, and the first one I'm going to talk about is TailScale, which is essentially a VPN that creates an encrypted connection between devices and is based on the open source WireGuard protocol. It doesn't have a web UI that lives on the server itself, we just have to go to the website. Also, TailScale is free for up to 3 users and 100 machines, which is really awesome. And all you have to do is download TailScale on the different machines you want to connect between. For example, I have my iPhone right here and my TrueNAS Scale server right here. And again, to explain what this does in even simpler terms, it means I can connect to my server from anywhere around the world securely. And what I'll do now is pull up my phone so that I can show you guys how it works. So I can go into the TailScale app on my phone, and it's pretty simple. You can see it just has my name and the 2 devices that are connected. And right now in the top right corner, you can also see I'm not connected to Wi-Fi. I'm on a 5G wireless network, so I'm not connected to the same network or anything. And all I have to do is click on this TrueNAS Scale, and it's going to give me addresses in ways I can connect to it. The top one is a .net, so all I have to do is copy that, head into my browser, hit paste and go, and it should connect us to my server. And as you can see, I am connected. Let's sign in, and there we go. I am now on the dashboard, and it's the same exact dashboard, just in the mobile version, and I can do everything I can do basically on my desktop. And say I'm away from home and want to change something on a Minecraft server I have up in MineOS, I can click on MineOS right down here, enter into the web UI, sign in, and then change whatever I need to. So as you can see, TailScale is very simple to use, and this was surprisingly easy to set up. I mean, it probably took 15 minutes total to set up an account and connect both of my machines and learn how to connect between them. So TailScale is definitely something I highly recommend you guys check out if you haven't already. Heading back into TrueNAS, the next thing I'm going to talk about is PiHole, which does have its own web UI, which we can go into right here. PiHole is a free and open source ad blocker that'll actually block ads across your entire network. It uses DNS to not just block ads, but also stuff like specific types of content, telemetry data, and even trackers. It's super simple to set up. I think it took me maybe 15 minutes to set it all up. All I had to do was install it, I think make a username and password, add an ad list. Also, you do have to go into your router's web interface and set the primary DNS as the PiHole address, which isn't hard to do. Again, this whole thing took maybe 15 minutes to set up. And if we go back to the dashboard, you can see that it is working. Now, this is something that I am going to continue to play around with, but I don't know if I will keep it on my TrueNAS server. I might end up moving it to a different server that I'm planning on building in about a month. That will be a part of a video, so stay tuned for that. But overall, PiHole is pretty cool. It's low resource intensive, it's very useful and easy to set up, so I, like many other people, can highly recommend it. Moving back over to TrueNAS, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is Home Assistant, which I did install, but opening the web UI, you can see I didn't really set anything up. I came to the realization that the smart appliances I do have don't work with Home Assistant. I have an Ecobee thermostat that doesn't directly work with Home Assistant. People say you can get it working kind of indirectly connecting it through HomeKit, but I wasn't able to get that work. I also have a Genie garage door opener, which is Wi-Fi connected and apparently used to work with Home Assistant, but after an API change doesn't work anymore. So right now I'm just doing research into stuff like Zigbee switches and other smart devices and trying to decide if I really want to go down the home automation rabbit hole. So let me know if you guys would like to see a dedicated video on that, and also let me know if you guys use Home Assistant and if you find it useful. Moving back over to TrueNAS, the next application that I'm going to talk about is Immich, and we can click on it and go to the web UI. Basically, this is an open source application that allows you to backup, store, and manage photos and videos. It's kind of like your own Google Photos alternative. I still have to set up automatic backups from my phone. I just did a manual backup, and now as you can see, I have all of my phone cat photos locally backed up. This will save me money in the long run as I keep taking photos and videos compared to paying for something like iCloud. I recently switched to iPhone a month or so ago and have those photos backed up here, but I also want to add my Google Photos in, so I'm trying to find an easy way of transferring all those photos from Google Photos into Immich. Also, this does more than just store photos. It has cool features like face recognition and place recognition, along with a map where you can see where you took all your photos. As you can see, I haven't left Florida in the month or so since I've got my phone, so all my photos are in Florida. Immich was pretty darn easy to set up. I mean, I maybe spent 30 minutes on it. You have to install it on your server and you have to install it on your phone. I still have to set up auto backups, but overall, this was very easy to use and I will definitely continue to use this in the future. Back into TrueNAS, the next thing I'm going to talk about is Minecraft servers. I tried a few different methods to set up a modded Minecraft server. One was the regular TrueNAS installer, but didn't have much luck with that. I also tried to use MineOS, which I also didn't really have much luck with, trying to do like a mod pack modded server. And I also didn't want to invest time into trying to learn these, as the next thing I want to learn game server wise is Pterodactyl panel, so I didn't want to invest time into these. And also I will be talking about Pterodactyl panel a little bit more towards the end of this video. So the next app I'm going to talk about, or actually it's a couple apps, are designed to solve the problem of you having too many apps or too many systems and stuff spread out all over the place. These are dashboards. The first one is Homepage, which I installed but didn't really set up at all because you have to actually go in and tweak config files. There's not like a graphical user interface to adjust things. The other one I installed and also set up a little bit is Homar, which we can go into the web UI and see that you can do links to your different services. So if we just click on one, we can go to it very quickly without having to go into TrueNAS. And you can also add widgets for stuff like PiHole, for example, I have over here, which gives you information on what it's doing, and you can even control it. Like if I want to disable PiHole quickly, all I have to do is press this button and never even go into the PiHole interface, and I can also re-enable it right here. Now, I've messed around a little bit with this. This is much easier as it does have this graphical interface where you can easily move things around, adjust it, add apps, add widgets. And what's also cool is all this stuff is on this server, but you can add stuff that's on other servers too, monitor multiple systems from a dashboard like this, so you can go really in depth. And also people will put a lot of effort in to make these look really cool. I haven't put too much effort in just yet because I have to decide which dashboard I want to use long term and want to invest the time in learning and tweaking. Heading back into TrueNAS, the next app I'm going to talk about is Collabora, which is kind of your own free personal version of Google Docs, which is supposed to work in tandem with Nextcloud, which I tried to install Nextcloud, but I just couldn't get it to work. And from my understanding, Nextcloud isn't that great to use right now, so I'm not really sure if I'm going to invest the time to get Nextcloud up and running, but let me know if you guys use Nextcloud and what your experience with it is like. Also, to explain, Nextcloud is basically your own personal and centralized cloud storage, like having your own Dropbox or Google Drive that you have full control over. So the rest of these apps, which actually will be better to visualize inside of Homar, are media related. So these are all stuff that have to do with media servers. There's two main ones that you can go with: Plex, which I installed but didn't set up, and Jellyfin, which I did install and set up, and you can see I have some stuff on here. This is super easy to set up. If you have your own media, all you have to do is install Jellyfin, make an account, point it towards a media folder that has stuff like movies and stuff like TV. You can organize it how you want, and then once it's pointed to there and you're in Jellyfin, it'll automatically find this stuff, and even automatically find stuff like artwork and metadata. Now, if you do have all your own media, then that's all you really need is a media server like Jellyfin or Plex and point it to the storage. But the rest of this stuff is all if you want to sail these 7 seas, and it's pretty cool how this system all works. Now, I am going to kind of explain each one of these one by one, but to explain how it all works together, I'm going to do this new series that I'm calling Matt Explains Server Stuff Poorly Inside of Photoshop. So on one side you have your media server. In my case it's Jellyfin, other people use Plex. You also have your media storage, which is connected to Plex or Jellyfin and houses all of your media. On the other side you have media files just out in the ethos on the World Wide Web. All of these files that you may want to get onto your server. Now you can do all this stuff manually. Say you want Shrek 4D DMCA free version, you can go over search around, find the file you want, download it, manually put it into your media storage, and then Plex or Jellyfin will be able to play it. But if you do have a little bit of time, you can take an afternoon, I'd say 2 to 4 hours, to set some stuff in the middle right here to make it much easier and even in some cases automatic. So the first thing that I have to explain, which actually isn't on the server, is something called an indexer. There's ones like NZB Geeks, which is paid for, and there's ones like Anime Tosho, which are free, and these basically do the job of finding all these media files. So you could go onto NZB Geek, search Shrek 4D, and it'll show you all the files that match with that. Now some of these might be in different languages, different resolutions, different file sizes, different subtitles, but it'll just give you a list of all of those. And it's best practice to use an indexer centralizer like Prowler, which is installed locally. I'll show it right now. If we go over to Prowler, you can see I have all the indexers inserted right here. And what it does is if you update or add one into the centralizer, it updates it all the way down the chain, which will make more sense in 1 second. The next part in this chain, which also lives on your server, is what I'm calling a media download automator, something like Radar for movies or Sonar for TV, series, and anime. There's also ones for music. There's also ones for books, and even sometimes people have multiple instances, like one Radar for normal content and one for 4K, which is why having this index centralizer is very helpful, because if you add or modify one in here, it updates it along all of these instances. Now I'll open up one of these as an example. We'll open up Radar, which is for movies. You can see all the movies I have right here. In the settings, you can adjust a bunch of preferences, stuff like language, subtitles, resolution, file size, stuff like that, so Radar knows exactly what you're looking for. That way, if you tell Radar you want Shrek 4D, it already knows all your preferences, so it searches through all the indexers to find the file that best matches or most closely matches your preferences. So say you want it in German language with Portuguese subtitles and in 480p, it'll find the file that most closely matches that and grab it. Now you can also add other automations, like in Sonar. If you're downloading a series and new episodes come out, you can have it automatically grab those episodes, or if a new file appears that more closely matches your preferences, you can have it automatically download those and replace the old ones. So now that you've found the perfect file you're looking for, you need a way to get it onto your system. So you'll need a download manager. For example, SAB-NZB is what I'm using. I'll open it up right now. And yeah, this is just a download manager. To be the most optimal, you do have to pay for a Usenet provider. I'm not really going to explain that right now. It just makes it easier and more efficient to download things. And that will take the files and put them into your media storage. Now there's one more thing kind of shoehorned in right here. You can add, it's optional. There's Overseer, which is the Plex version, or the version that works with Jellyfin, which is called Jellyseer. This is essentially a level above this. I'm going to open it right now. And inside of Jellyseer, you can search both movies and TV shows and even get content suggestions if you don't know what you want. So once you have this full system set up, you can tell Jellyseer, I want Shrek 4D, It'll then go into Radar because it's a movie and not a TV show, and Radar will search the indexers for the perfect file that matches your preferences. It'll take that file, the download manager will download it, and it will automatically put it into your media storage for you to view in either Jellyfin or Plex. Now this may seem pretty complex, but again, it only takes about 2 to 4 hours I'd say to set it all up, and once it's up and running, it is super easy to use and get whatever content you want. And again, this is all for people who want to be a pirate, sail the 7 seas, and this is for educational purposes only. So that is all the apps that I installed and set up over the past couple of days. Overall, installing applications inside of TrueNAS is super easy. In most cases, it's just a couple of clicks and it's installed. Now, there obviously is configuration within the apps that you have to do, but the actual act of installing them is very, very easy inside of TrueNAS. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is virtual machines. What I wanted to do was install 2 instances of Ubuntu server to try out 2 different methods of installing Pterodactyl panel, but I didn't have much luck installing these and setting these up, and after doing a little bit of research, from what I could see, VMs inside of TrueNAS don't work all that well, so I didn't put too much time in trying to get them up and running, and I think I'm just going to test these 2 ways of installing Pterodactyl panel on bare metal and not mess around with virtual machines. Maybe I'll try Proxmox, I don't know, we'll see, but in TrueNAS virtual machines don't seem to work the best, at least in my experience. So that is all the stuff I've downloaded and set up over the past couple of days. I've had a lot of fun playing around with this stuff. I think I'm going to mainly just keep media related services on this machine and move some of the other ones to a different system. With all this being said, I'm interested to hear what you guys think of my setup and what stuff you think I should add to my TrueNAS server. So yeah guys, I think it's time to wrap this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.